What's up everybody, it's Sean here, and today's video is going to be a little bit different. So if you're watching this video, you're probably a pretty big fan of New Balance, and you know just how popular they've become over the past few years. I'm not going to say that I'm an OG New Balance head, but I've definitely appreciated the brands throughout the 15 plus years that I've been collecting sneakers. So I definitely don't have the best memory, so my recollection and my timeline's kind of a bit hazy. But if you ask me, when did New Balance really start becoming more mainstream and when did they start really generating more hype, then I would say somewhere around 2019. Thanks to a fashion label you probably heard of called Aimé Leon d'Or, when they released two colorways of the 997 in early 2019, and then they followed it up later on that year, releasing a 990 V5, along with this one, the 990 V2, which is now fetching an obscene amount of money on the secondary market, and it's considered by many for New Balance collectors to be a grail. But in my humble opinion, the real turning point that I saw things begin to really shift was in February of 2020, when Joe Fresh Goods, you probably have heard of him, released his 992 No Emotions Are Emotions. So these were pretty limited and hard to get, and obviously the prices on the secondary market, it just shot up through the roof. And I feel like after that point, New Balance started to become much more mainstream, and then now here we are today, where even GR 550s or 2002Rs are sometimes hard to obtain for retail. So we probably all know all the recent collaborations that have dropped in the past couple of years. We have the DTLRs, we have some Todd Snyders, Aura Lee, Rich Paul, Levi's, the list just goes on and on and on. But for today's video, I don't want to focus on the present. I actually want to go back in time and pull out some of my favorite New Balance collaborations from the past, or as I'm going to call it for this video, old school New Balance collabs. So it was really tough for me to limit my list to just 10. I had to go through my stacks and just cut pairs, unfortunately, but I'm pretty happy with the end result of my list. But before I actually break it down, here's my number 11 on my list, the honorable mention, which is the Concepts New Balance 997, part of the City Rivalry Pack, inspired by the rivalry between Boston and New York City. This one was the New York City colorway, and the colorway was of course inspired by the Statue of Liberty. I personally love this shade of green, it's just so refreshing and so eye-popping, but I feel like this shoe is so similar to another pair that's going to be on my list, which I'll show you later on. That's why I had to leave it off the top 10. So kicking off the list at number 10, I gotta rep the home city of Toronto. This one goes to the capsule collaboration with New Balance on the MT580 on this Canadian Tuxedo colorway. This pair released back in 2014. It's wild that it's been 8 years since it's released. I remember lining up for this pair. And as the nickname of this shoe suggests, Canadian Tuxedo, this embraces our Canadian roots, and it features this all denim construction. So we have this bright blue denim on the upper, a darker blue denim on the tongue, this red colored denim on the New Balance end logo. So clearly this is just a very fun and very creative take on a New Balance silhouette, and the fact that it is coming from a Canadian or Toronto boutique makes it that much more special. Next up at number 9, we have the Concept 998. This is the second pair in that same City Rivalry pack, this one representing Boston. So this pair and the 997 that I showed you earlier, they both released back in 2016. So this one represents Boston and the Boston Red Sox, and the color scheme of this shoe is actually based off of Jersey Street, formerly known as Yawkey Way. So this is a famous street located outside of Boston's Fenway Park, and the mix of the green and the red is actually what you'd see if you're standing on that street outside of the ballpark. So this colorway, even though it's not tied directly to the Boston Red Sox colors, because of how iconic Fenway Park is, it just makes this colorway so iconic and so recognizable. Moving on to number 8, we have another Canadian entry on this list. This is a collab with Ottawa-based boutique Normal on the 998 and the Parliamentary Runner colorway. So this pair released coinciding with and celebrating Canada's 150th birthday, along with Normal's 20th year anniversary as well. So these were actually individually numbered and limited to only 150 pairs, and the colorway of this shoe is inspired by the buildings found on Ottawa's Parliament Hill, where Canada's federal government works out of. So aside from being just a very clean colorway, myself being a very proud Canadian, I had to add this pair to my list. Next up at number 7, we have the Ronnie Fieg New Balance 530 in the Central Park colorway. This pair released in 2014, celebrating Kith's two locations at the time, one in Brooklyn and one in Manhattan. So Ronnie selected the 850 silhouette to celebrate Brooklyn, whereas for Manhattan he opted for the 530 silhouette, and the colorway is said to be inspired by Central Park in the fall season. So we have a beautiful buttery burgundy upper with these off-white yellow and green colored hits. And I've always loved this shoe despite not being a huge fan of the 530 silhouette, just because the colorway is so true to Ronnie's inspiration and the color combination is so unique. I don't really have any other New Balances like this in my collection. Next up at number 6, we have another Ronnie Fieg collab. This one is the 998 in the City Never Sleeps colorway. So this released a year later in 2015, and it was Ronnie Fieg's first 998 collab ever. So as the nickname of the shoe suggests, this shoe was inspired by his home of New York City, and the fact that even in the darkest of nights, the city skyline and the city lights are always as bright as ever. And what I really liked about this shoe is that it really has a mature sort of vibe to it. Not only is the 998 silhouette very sleek, but the colorway of this shoe, with these different shades of blue and black with just the right amount of white accents, makes it a colorway that has stood the test of time, and it's a sneaker you can pull off if you're looking for something that's a bit more mature and something that looks a little bit more dressy. Moving on to number 5, we have the Concepts 997 in this rosé colorway. So these released in 2014. It's wild that it's been that long, but the reason why Concepts released this pair was to celebrate the opening of their New York City store. So as with most celebrations go, you pop some bubbly. So this pair is inspired by rosé, and it's a very luxurious and very premium feeling shoe that's fit for the occasion. So we have this very buttery, very plush pink colored suede found throughout the shoe, and then we have this textured reflective 3M throughout as well, which makes it a very simple colorway, but one that looks very elegant and very classy at the same time. Moving on to number 4, we have the Concepts 998 in this mint colorway. So these released a year earlier from the rosés in 2013. This pair is inspired by the US Mint, and the colorway of this shoe is very unique with these green and beige colored hits, and it's said to be inspired by the look of US currency. So even though it's nearly been a decade since these released, the shoe feels as good as ever. The suede still feel very premium in hand, and I really like collaborations like this that really execute the concept and the theme well without being over the top and being overboard. And now we're at my top 3. So kicking things off at number 3, we have another Concepts release, this one on the 999 in the seal colorway. So these seals were actually the first New Balance shoe that really caught my eye back in 2012. The look and the materials of the shoe were inspired by the amphibious OTB Abyss 2, which is a shoe that's worn by US Navy SEALs. So what's really dope is that they incorporated some really unique materials, such as stain-resistant microfiber suede, ballistic mesh surrounding this ankle collar area, along with very breathable nylon as well. And no matter how many pairs of New Balances I own in my collection, these seals will always have a special place in my heart, because I guess you can say this was my first New Balance love. So coming in at number 2, we have, of course, another Concepts release. This one is another 998 in the C-Note colorway. So the C-Notes also released back in 2013. So I guess 2013 was just a good year for concepts and US money themes. So this pair is inspired by the then new look of the US $100 bill. And what I really like about this collab is that they didn't really play it safe. It's such a random theme with kind of random colors, but they executed so perfectly on this pair. So when it comes to the most iconic New Balance collabs of all time, definitely the C-Note's gotta be on that list. And finally, we're at number 1, what I consider to be my favorite New Balance collaboration of all time. So even though this is not technically the release that I wanted, it's basically a retro, topping off my list, I gotta give it to the Concepts New Balance 999 in this Hyannis blue colorway. So the pair that I actually really wanted was the OG pair, the Kennedys from 2011. So the Hyannis was basically a retro or remastered take because the Kennedys were not made in USA, whereas this 2017 release was. So these released alongside a red colorway as well, both releasing at ComplexCon, and the design of this shoe is inspired by President Kennedy's family's passion for sailing at Port Hyannis in Massachusetts. So I don't know exactly what it is I love so much about this, but the colorway and the design I just think is perfect. It's a pair that looks great in all seasons. You can dress it up, you can dress it down. And though I've never owned a pair of the original Kennedys, this Hyannis pair at least, the quality is just amazing. So when people ask me what's my favorite New Balance silhouette of all time, and I say the 999, a big reason for that is because of both this one and the Concept seals, both of those which really sparked my love for New Balance back in the earlier days of when I was collecting. So that's my list of my all-time favorite old school New Balance collaborations of all time. So I wasn't as big of a New Balance head then as I am now, so I know there's definitely some really iconic pairs that I've missed in my list, so drop a comment down below to let me know what pairs you would have liked to see on my list. And be sure to also let me know, of these 11 pairs, which one was your personal favorite. If you guys like this video, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe to my channel if you haven't yet. You can follow me on Instagram at esco8, check me out on Twitter at sean.go, and visit my website at seango.ca. So until next time, thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll catch you guys all in the next one.